Today's Memorial Day weekend episode of Lone Star Lawyers on the Varsity Podcast Network is brought to you by Varsity Search. Varsity Search specializes in helping small law firms in Texas hire lawyers and build great teams. So if you're thinking of making a move or your law firm is looking to hire, please go to varsitysearch.com and book a time to visit right into my calendar. Varsity Search, building great teams. Hey everyone, Daniel here back with you on Lone Star Lawyers. I hope you and your family are both healthy and safe. Now, before we get into this episode, a quick reminder that Varsity Search has been retained by Hedrick Kring, a high-end litigation boutique in Dallas, and we are looking for a 2 to 5 year associate attorney. Now, this role would spend a significant amount of time representing major accounting firms in litigation and regulatory investigations, as well as a broader business litigation docket. So if you're in a large law firm or maybe another litigation boutique, you're ready to start taking depots, second chairing trials, all while still doing sophisticated work with other talented lawyers, this might be right for you. So if you or someone you know might be interested, please go to varsitysearch.com/lawyers. You can scroll down to the bottom of the page where the job is posted. You can apply directly there. Also on our Varsity Search LinkedIn page, the job's posted there as well, and you can apply there also. You could also email me, daniel@varsitysearch.com, if you want to ask me any questions. Happy to visit with you. Okay, today we head to Houston, where James Amaro is our guest. James is the founding attorney at Amaro Law Firm, where he and his firm represent individuals, families, and businesses who have suffered either catastrophic injuries, death, property losses, all of those things. James has racked up plenty of awards over the years, including being a Texas Super Lawyer or Rising Star each of the past 6 years, and a top trial lawyer in multiple categories by National Trial Lawyers. Now, we recorded this conversation on April 9th, so do keep that in mind as we discuss the COVID-related matters. So we've moved ahead a little bit since then. And with that, let's hop into our conversation with James Amaro on today's special Memorial Day edition of Lone Star Lawyers. James Amaro joins us right now. James, thanks for coming on the show today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate you extending the invitation.
Well, and I know that this is a crazy time. We were just talking about it off air before we came on here. I mean, I know that you're always busy. A lot's always going on, but just in this climate of the coronavirus and everything, even more so and in different ways. Why don't you let's talk about that for a few minutes and just kind of hear how that's impacting your practice. What within your firm and your attorneys, your staff, and the workplace environment there, what have you all been able to do? What's going on as it relates to just the changes that we're having to make in this coronavirus world?
Well, Our firm's always been pretty tech savvy over the years. I mean, we've signed 90+% of cases that we sign up for our firm through electronic means and had virtual meetings and all that on the intake side of the business. But in terms of the workflow and processing, we're a firm where people come in to the office and we work. And we have teams and departments here, 30-plus team members that work here at our Houston office. And, you know, the changes we had to adapt to really quickly was how do we have a remote workforce? Like tomorrow is essentially what we had to face. This was about 3 weeks ago. Yeah. So we hired consultants to help us and advise us on what technology is available out there to help ensure productivity with their team remotely, because, I mean, they're working at home, right? And, I mean, how do we know where they are and what they're doing, and how do we keep them on task to the missions of the weeks? Because, you know, with attorneys, you know, especially if you got court-mandated deadlines that you have to meet, and you're not getting continuances, and you got docket control orders and whatnot, you know, the show goes on, and and unfortunately, we face malpractice if you miss a deadline. That's just the way it is. So we quickly determined who was at risk, and I guess they said that they were high risk individuals. If they had health issues or whatever. So we discovered who that was, had people self-report, and got everybody remote that we could immediately. Invested a lot of money in IT and remote workstations, and made sure that those were secure. Got complete VoIP system. Spent a small fortune on that deal to get everybody remote so they could call outbound and have inbound calls from a phone system at their home. And we tested everything out, and we really honed in on our structure for productivity to make sure that people were mission-driven, outcome-driven for the week, so that we're not micromanaging just because they're remote. And then had, to kick things off the last 3 weeks, like each department head, we're having daily meetings in the morning, and just, hey, okay, guys, checking in, how things going, any issues, with technology or accessing the servers and case management systems. You guys have any issues with that? And if so, let me know, and I'll run it up the ladder. And what are you going to get done today, right? And so everybody tries to stay focused on top 3 things for the week that they're going to do and that are big and are going to move our cases forward. And every day, what are the 3 things that you're going to do today? Start with the hardest thing first in the morning and get that out of the way, and everything else becomes easy. And they'll probably get a dozen things done in a day, but those 3 very important things, make sure that those get done first. So it's been a real challenge.
Sounds like
to get that when you get a lot of people doing that, and things keep changing every day.
Right.
New orders come out, new information, new data comes out, and you have to adapt. So you just have to constantly be on it. I've got a website that I monitor the data for COVID diagnosis and fatalities, state by state, and try to keep tabs on where there's breakouts. And so,
right.
Just this week on Monday, we found out somebody in the building here on the 3rd floor. We're in a 6th floor building. We have most of the 5th floor, and the manager sent an email. I think it was Monday morning. It said somebody on the 3rd floor tested positive for another company, and just giving us a heads up. So then we have to draft an email to the entire team and let them know and say, exercise your discretion. You absolutely can go work remote. Immediately if you don't feel safe, and you should if you don't. Yeah. And we have the ability, and we can make that accommodation immediately for you. So I think it's going to be an ongoing thing here for the next few weeks.
Yeah. Wow. It absolutely. And you referenced also the cases that, some of them are continuing. The show goes on, and you're moving those forward. What has that been like in terms of just what the courts have been doing for your cases, and what are you able to continue to do, even if it's remote right now, versus what is getting pushed back or continued or anything like that?
Well, it's been a big learning curve. One, I'd only done a few Zoom depositions prior to this, and now, there's Zoom, of course, that everybody is using that, but there's some insurance companies that don't want to use Zoom because some security issues. In
the last day, I feel like that's been on everybody's kind of top, the news feeds of the security issues Zoom's facing and trying to catch up on that side of it. So, yeah.
Right. I got an update on my desktop that I'm like, I guess that might be related to this supposed security issue. I'm just learning the technology, and now I got to learn about these security problems too.
Right.
So some insurance companies, they want to use other technology like WebEx, and there's some vendors out there that do depositions through remote video conferencing, and you got to learn all of those too, and how their specific system used, because if you have a deposition, like say a neurologist or a neurosurgeon, there's a lot of literature that you're going to ask the witness about. I may have 50 exhibits in a deposition. And so how do you get all that organized and do it in a way that protects your work product If you're writing notes and highlighting stuff on your exhibits, and you want to ask the witness about it, it may or may not come up. You may not use all the 50 exhibits. So it's a lot of adapting and learning and trying to think ahead, about what problems can come up there, and just getting along with everybody and trying to be accommodating, but still you got to do what's in your client's best interest, and so does the other side, and we understand that. The courts and the orders have been a bigger challenge for our firm. Mm-hmm. We have cases statewide. We have cases in federal court. We have tons of cases in federal court, and so every court has most have been pretty consistent, but in the very beginning there was some inconsistency county by county, court by court. Some courts were doing their own thing under the guidance of the Texas Supreme Court. So there's been a little bit more consistency recently, but the federal courts are still kind of doing their own thing, and it's case by case, court by court. You have to go and look and see what that specific court's doing, and have a system to keep yourself updated. Yeah. So what our team has done is we put together a file system for all the orders to keep updated for all of them and to report. But it's every single day we're getting new orders out from different courts and having to apprise the entire litigation team about it. So it's definitely been a challenge, and I'm hopeful that either this all ends soon or we get some more clarity and consistency from the courts.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we said, this is going to move on, and we're going to all adapt and do the best we can with it, and work and heart and pray and hope that it gets over soon, so we can get back to a little more sense of normalcy. And on that note, I do want to have a conversation with you, just as I would without this going on, about your firm and about what some young associates that listen to this show can learn about growing in the profession. But first, why don't you tell us a little bit about your firm? We've kind of hinted at it a couple of times, and I mentioned it in the intro, but tell us about your firm, your practice, who you represent, what types of cases you have, and give us a little update on that.
Sir, what a way to start your career, right?
Oh, man.
In this setting?
Oh, my gosh.
I feel for the guys who are supposed to sit for the bar and the ladies that's supposed to sit for the bar this summer. And we have a young associate here who's waiting on his bar results. And I think it's got pushed off. But I think the right thing to do is to push the test off. I can't imagine trying to study for that right now with everything that's going on. Everybody has their own cross to bear and has family and things that they got to deal with in their personal life while trying to keep up with your professional life too. It's a real challenge, and I feel for those kids coming out. Our practice is 100% personal injury. We used to do some insurance claims, like hail. I tried the first Hurricane Ike case to verdict back in the summer of 2010 in Beaumont, and we did a lot of that work back in the day, and we've kind of shifted more to the personal injury world in the last 5 years, especially, and almost doing 100% that. We do have some mass torts that we're working on. We're involved in the Deepwater Horizon litigation still. It's going on 10 years. We've probably filed 5 motions just this week and pleadings and which is really difficult to do in these conditions when you're filing 20-page briefs and trying to coordinate all that and get all the exhibits at that. So, I would say, quote unquote specialty in personal injury. Obviously we do car wrecks, just like any other personal injury firm. We have an entire department, and that's all I handle, mainly in Houston. And statewide, we do a lot of brain injury cases, and we do a lot of trucking cases. We do those across the country, really, and we work with other firms locally if we have cases in other states. So a lot of trucking cases, and we got involved. Actually, I've been doing trucking since I was a defense attorney. I did insurance defense in the beginning of my career, and went out on my own in 2005 after the BP explosion in Texas City, and was fortunate to know people that were involved in that, and be able to have the opportunity to help them and recover in that deal. So, my firm kind of started off with a bang back then, and I handled some trucking cases right out the gate too, and was able to build up the firm. In the beginning, I just worked with a lot of more experienced lawyers, a lot of them that are retired now, and learned the business of this practice really before I learned how to handle the cases as a personal injury lawyer.
Right.
And so my idea when I built the firm, especially in the last 5 years and where I've really refocused, was to build a firm that I would be working at if it existed when I got out of law school. So if there was a personal injury firm like this that existed and had the opportunities available to a young, hungry, driven attorney with a good heart, I mean, this would be the place I'd be working at. And that's what I tell the guys at All Start. I got a great team of young lawyers, very passionate, they have great hearts, and they work very hard for our clients. We're really proud of those guys and girls.
That's awesome. Is there anything happening right now? COVID aside, is there anything happening right now within the personal injury space, either from just a legal standpoint or particular? I mean, I know you mentioned you're doing a lot of trucking, a lot of head injury, brain injury as well. Are there either trends or changes or anything going on just that are impacting your clients in your practice area right now?
Well, I mean, it's definitely not gotten easier. I mean, I started I got out of law school in 2002 from Wisconsin and moved to Texas. And actually it was a similar situation like right now. I got out right after 9/11. And in fact, I was going to hopefully start a job at the SEC in New York. I had just finished my last interview and right before 9/11 happened. And so, when I sent my follow-up, I mean, how do you follow up with the people after their entire lives were destroyed and the building went down? And so I had to come back to Houston and started out with doing insurance defense. Now so I feel for the young students that are coming out and trying to start their career in these conditions and all the uncertainty. I mean, I've been there and it sucks. And I completely empathize with them, but I would tell them that when you do come out, you're going to come out much stronger, and you're going to have a lot more gratitude, I would say. I haven't seen much of that entitlement from millennials. I mean, I got a lot of millennials that work here, and I think some people treat them a little unfairly with millennialitis or whatnot.
Right.
But it's definitely going to put things in perspective, I think, for a lot of people. And in terms of like how I see things changing, I think that the pendulum is definitely switched a lot. The focus, there was a lot of tort reform talk when I first started in my career, and that was like a big thing out there. And a lot of laws changed that were not favorable to injured individuals and their families.
Right.
Especially in the med mal world. I've never even, I don't even practice med mal. I mean, because there's no help for them in the legal world, really. I mean, it really isn't. And, so I've kind of established myself in that setting. And so now things are changing, and I'm happy to see that with voters getting out and voting for people that represent their best interest in the legislature and with judges that we'll see some effective change here soon. And that's good, But right now, in the last 2 months, I can see the freeway 610 out of my office window here, and traffic is real slow. Less car wrecks, less business. And I saw a story where Allstate was refunding like a ridiculous amount of money back to its policyholders because there's less accidents for them to pay with. And I don't know what percentage of people in car wrecks are resolved without attorneys, with property damage and no injuries. I mean, it has to be billions of dollars countrywide that they're saving. And I mean, we're still paying our premiums into this giant insurance bucket.
Right.
All of us do this every month. And the insurance carriers are just going to keep the money, and pay less claims. So I'm interested to see what the effects are going to be once everybody kind of gets a better understanding of how this is going to impact their models, of how that's going to play out. I mean, are they going to treat people more fairly that are injured? I don't know. Yeah. So it's interesting times. Very.
No doubt. Everything's sort of up in the air now, I think, in a lot of ways in terms of what happens from here. You've mentioned that you have some young lawyers and young associates that work for you. As you think back to some of the advice that you received when you were a younger lawyer, kind of coming up, what are some things that you learned or that you feel are important for young lawyers to embrace or to make part of who they are as a lawyer in order to set themselves up for success?
Oh boy, I could talk about this for an hour. I really could.
You got 2.5 minutes. No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one, here's the best piece of advice I ever got was, as a young lawyer, was to be used and useful. And, as a young attorney coming out, you might think like, be used and useful. Who? To my boss, to the supervisor. I paid my dues after 2 years. You got to kind of get that out of you. You got to do an attitude adjustment on that really fast. And so be used and useful means in all parts of your life, professionally, personally. In this environment right now, when there's people that need help desperately, that don't have it as good as we do, and are dealing with very unfortunate circumstances. So be used and useful. Help where you can help, and whether it's at the firm or with your clients one-on-one, what is going to best serve this client? What can I do for this client to help them today? Check in on people, and let them know you care and that you're thinking of them. There's different ways you can do that. I didn't grow up in this texting and Facebook world. That there's just so many different ways you can communicate and just say, hey, I'm here to help. Yeah. Let me know how I can add value to you and your life. Is there anything I can do? I think that would be the most important thing, as a young attorney, is just be used and useful, and not be, so focused on personal ambitions, financial ambitions, and that thing. I mean, that all kind of comes with the territory. When you provide great value, people will come and know and respect that, and the rest of it really does come with it, and it takes time.
Yeah.
So be patient.
Yeah, that's awesome. As you've gone through the process of hiring lawyers over the years, what are maybe one or two things that you look for on resumes or in cover letters that either make someone more attractive or maybe make someone an automatic no? What are the kind of highs and lows that you see in application documents?
Well, and this brings back some memories from when I was young, hotshot, entitled little,
right,
brat coming out of law school, and how I thought of things, and what I thought that potential employers were looking at and what was important to them, and I would say, like, the thing I look at, I really do, and I gloss over resumes. I really do. I have people, a COO here, and he really looks at them. I tell him what I'm looking for, and he looks for it, and then he screens the resumes and gets them to me based on what I'm looking for in a potential applicant. But you're looking for people that do well in school, obviously, and try, because it shows that you take your responsibilities serious and that you work hard, and it doesn't have to be top 5%, 10%, even 30%, but that you actually do try, and that you have interest outside of the law profession, that you're a real human being, not a robot, right. And that you take the time to review your resume, have somebody else proofread it, don't have any typos, because lawyers like me that read thousands of pages a week in briefs, I mean, I could see a typo in a second, or see, justify your text. I'd say that. Justify
Right.
your text on every document. I mean, because that is just a big red flag for me when I'm editing briefs or I'm reviewing briefs from an opposing counsel. Is when you see text that isn't justified, you're like, come on, you could justify the text. I mean, it doesn't look good, and you can notice it immediately when you're used to seeing it. So,
Right.
those would be the tips, and put your strengths up first, towards the top.
Yeah.
Like, we want to know, and don't just do the cut and paste general basic stuff like, help draft memos and wrote this. Like, be specific in some of the things you did that'll catch the eye of the reviewer, and help them see like what you did, like, and how that helped other people.
Yeah, I think, and I'm glad you said that last part about how it helped other people, because I think sometimes as I look at resumes, a lot of what you see is sort of a almost like a recitation of what the job description was probably like when the HR department wrote it for that particular lawyer position. And the difference is, once you're doing the job, is you actually should have, hopefully, some results to show for your work. And so, being able to, on a resume, say that you wrote the brief for this, which resulted in X, is a whole different thing that you're able to layer on top of the actual work that you did. So instead of just a list of your responsibilities, being able to tie those to the accomplishments that you have or the results that you achieve for your client or for your firm, for your partner, whatever, along with that, is a huge advantage. And I think a lot of people miss that opportunity, honestly, to be able to showcase themselves in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing too that I look at is like mock court and what they were doing, because I mean it's you put some conversation starters in your resume, and somebody sees it, and you get lucky with the interview. You come in and you have the partners at the law firm or the associates, whoever's doing the interview, they're going to see that, like, something that's different. All the other stuff is blah 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 blah, gloss over, and then you see something like, oh, what's that about? And they're going to ask about it, so it'll be a good conversation starter. Yeah. And you're doing other things to learn, not, let's say it's a second, third year associate or something. There's so many books out there in the profession that were not available when I got out. I mean, first trial I ever saw was the one I did. I mean,
yeah,
I had no idea how to try a case, and just went in and just basically winged it on my first trial and second and third, and we just got a lot better at trying cases. But I didn't have that mentorship and trial when I first started, and now there's just so many tools, so many workshops, so many trial lawyer groups, especially in the plaintiff's bar, and there's a lot of camaraderie between the different lawyers groups that are out there. I mean, everybody's very helpful. I mean, we did not have that. I wish we would have had that. So young lawyers, I mean, you guys can learn so quick and so fast. I mean, I would say within 5 years, if you get in there, cut your teeth trying cases, go to these workshops, these colleges, read these books, and be very proactive in doing it, you could catch up to a lot of guys who've been doing this for 15, 20 years. And I mean that like completely, with complete genuineness.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's good advice and good encouragement, because, I think that's true. When a candidate gets into your office for an interview, what are some key things that you're looking for there? What are some ways that candidates can impress you in an interview?
To be prepared, because a lot of us that are out here working, we work really hard. I mean, I've been at the office every single day since this happened. My wife isn't very happy with that, and we have a 5-month-old baby at home, and I have to come to work every day because we have all these deadlines that we got to meet, and it's just too much to do remote with all these exhibits and work product and stuff highlighted, and not having anybody here to scan it in, and so it's pretty hectic. And so you got to take that in mind when you're coming in. The show's not really about you. It's about what you can add to the team and value, right? And show that you could be a long-term hire. It costs money to take on a new hire and get them up to speed and get their computers and get all that stuff and IT. And I mean, it takes a lot of time and effort to hire somebody, one, and then two, to provide them the training to be a successful addition to the firm. You know, that's a 2-year process before that investment in that associate will start to turn into an actual profitable venture. Yeah. And so you got to keep that in mind. Like those first couple of years, I mean, you really got to pay your dues. You really got to add value to the firm, and especially in the plaintiff's world. You know, we don't bill hours, so right. You know, it's eat what you kill. And your first 2 years, you're not going to be killing much. I mean, it's just you're going to be helping, right?
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, and I want to ask you about that. And I know it's a little different, probably in the plaintiff's world than on the defense side or in a non-litigation side. But I want to hear from your perspective and from the plaintiff side about how young lawyers can start to think about building business, building relationships to build business, and client development and those types of things. Like I said, I know it's a little different from defense to plaintiff. So what's your sort of advice to young lawyers about how to think about eventually growing a business or starting right now to grow a business?
Well, I mean, it's pretty difficult to start a law firm in these financial times, you know, with the uncertainty out there. And in 2008, I mean, it just seems like yesterday when that happened.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's pretty difficult. I mean, my advice would be to establish relationships with law firms that have the resources and that have the infrastructure to handle, you know, the big cases. That's what I did when I first started. And, you know, learn how to work the cases and say, hey, I want to help. How can I help work on this case if you do that? But it's in terms of like developing businesses, you're not personal injury on the plaintiff side, you know, you're not going to get cases at the golf course.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Or that's not where they come from. I grew up in a rough part of town outside of Houston, and you know, my friends that I grew up with, most didn't go to college. I mean, I maybe knew a handful of people that went to college growing up, and they're all my buddies still. They're like brothers to me that I grew up with and friends. So I've kept those relationships, and that's who I hang out with, you know, and those are my friends. So I've always been helpful and talked about, you know, this crazy profession that we're in to everybody that's willing to listen,
right?
You know, and that's where a lot of my cases had started coming from, and then it just became from reviews. You know, we have probably more reviews than any other personal injury law firm in Texas, I know, and in Houston for sure. And that's just because one of our values is providing stellar customer service. Like I cannot stand bad customer service. I mean, it's the worst. I'm willing to pay more money for the same service provided as long as they have good. If they don't have bad customer service, like like Sprint phones, Comcast, I will not deal with them.
Right.
You know, because the customer service is so bad. And I'm willing to pay more to get the same thing from somebody else that gives good customer service. So, you know, and I use Mattress Mac here in Houston, right? He is a role model for great customer service. One of the hardest working guys I've ever met. He was a keynote speaker for us at our firm kickoff last year. Came out totally. He's such a humble, gracious man. And it was really cool to see him and have him actually come talk to our small firm, you know, 30-something people. And I thought it didn't even occur to me when he came out and spoke to us that he actually spoke to our junior high when I was in 7th grade.
Oh, man.
Came out and spoke to us about, I don't know what it was. It was like I think an anti-drug, war on drug thing. And I think the drug, they were talking about this new drug called ICE or something. Yeah. Never heard of it. Never heard of ICE. I guess it's meth now? I don't know.
I don't know.
But we're like, all of us, you know, in 7th grade, what's this guy talking about? ICE. What's ICE?
Right.
So I just remember that from way back then. It was so cool for him to come out because I mean that's what we're about. It's great customer service.
Yeah, and that translates so much from industry to industry. I mean, it's almost its own language. You can have, and that's why I like. We've had a conversation a couple months ago with plaintiff's firm in Austin. Josh Fogelman and Andrew Von Flater and have their firm in Austin, and they talked a lot about modeling their customer service off of other industry leaders outside of law, just like you're just referring to. And so it's something that translates, but a lot of law firms don't look at that as a model for customer service or don't prioritize it the way you talk about.
Oh man, it's. I mean, think about it. There's that book by the Zappos guy, Tony, whatever his name is, that he wrote. Great book about customer service. And I don't know where I heard this recently, maybe on a podcast or something, but all businesses are about selling happiness, right? Like, I mean, think about McDonald's, they sell the Happy Meal. Think about Walmart. I mean, what makes them so successful? They have a greeter. Welcome to Walmart, and come out. It may make you feel good. And when you think about your firm as a business and you're providing a service to people or businesses, if you're doing defense work or non-personal injury stuff, but for, in my world in personal injury, we serve people and individuals. And if we have a problem with a client, like where the client has a problem with us, and I have an associate come in or somebody, a paralegal or a case manager, to come in my office, run up the ladder, and it gets to me, it must be a serious problem with a client issue. My first question is like, well, what's going to make the client happy? And can we do it? Can we do that? And if we can do it, then let's do it. It's that simple.
Right.
And ask them if that's going to make them happy. Don't just assume.
Yeah.
Mr. or Mrs. Client, if I talk to James or I talk to my boss, if we do this, do you think that would solve the problem? I'm trying to help you. And would this make you happy if we were able to do this? Hone in on what the issue is. Don't let it be something else that it's not. Find out, like, is this the only issue that you got? Okay, it is. All right, here's my solution. Would this make you happy? And then if you could do it, do it. And if not, explain why not.
That's good. Yeah, absolutely. Well, James, we're towards the end of our time here, and I just want to say I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day and schedule to be with us. It means a lot. And we've got a few rapid fire questions to close our time. So if you're ready, we'll go there next.
Sure.
All right. Name one trait or characteristic you most want to see in an associate.
The realness, authenticity.
There you go. What habit has been key to your success?
I would say being real. I mean, that really is. I mean, be true to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Favorite app or productivity tool?
Oh, boy.
You may have just implemented it. I don't know.
I know, right? There's so many new ones. I mean, I'm old school. I'd say Outlook.
There you go.
It's like my to-do list.
Yeah. This is a fairly recent additional question that we've had. Favorite social distancing activity?
Oh, boy. Go to work, right? Go to the office.
That doesn't count. What do you find yourself doing new or more of that, or maybe you've rediscovered in this odd period of time?
Man, I had my first child last fall, and my daughter is just precious. I love her to death, and it's just really cool to, kind of be forced to just be home more than I usually am, and just be around her all the time. And our bond is just going to be so strong through this experience. I mean, she only knows me and her mom and the nanny right now.
Right.
She don't know anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. And last one, your favorite all-time legal movie?
A Civil Action.
Ooh, good. Yeah.
If you haven't watched that movie and you're thinking about being a plaintiff's attorney, the Jan Schlitman story, it's always been an inspiration for me. It made me, our Civ Pro teacher in law school made us read that book.
Yeah.
And I didn't read a lot back, and I still don't read a lot of fiction. I read a lot of nonfiction, read tons of books a year, but I don't read a lot of fiction books.
Right.
But that book and the movie are great, and they're both are great. I don't know which one I enjoy more.
Yeah.
But that's my favorite. I know a lot of people say My Cousin Vinny, it's a great movie too, but
right.
Action's my favorite.
Well, no, it's on our list of movies that we're going to deep dive into, and so I'm glad that you said it because I think you're the first person to mention it on the show. And you're right, yeah. My Cousin Vinny, A Few Good Men, kind of carry the day a lot of times in just mass numbers, but we want to go into a lot of different ones, and so that one was on our list to do, and I'm glad you mentioned it. So
yeah,
thanks for that.
The best scene, I was going to say this, the best scene of that movie, my favorite scene, is when John Travolta has an invitation at some Harvard club or Yale club with some big law firm, and the guy in there who's talking to him or sets this meeting about this case they're working on says, "Come on, put your feet up on the table. Put your feet on the table. Come on." And he's trying to get John Travolta to do things he didn't want to do, to like get
right.
leverage on
yeah,
him.
yeah.
And it's a great scene. I love that scene.
Awesome. Well, James, again, thanks for being here, and best to you and your family and your growing family, your 5-month-old daughter. Congrats to you all, and we wish you the best.
Thank you so much for having me on here, and everybody, please be safe. Please be kind to each other.
All right, my thanks again to James Amaro for joining us on the show. If you enjoyed this episode, would you do a couple of things for me? One, would you subscribe so you don't miss an episode? And then secondly, would you rate and review the podcast, either in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts? Would really appreciate that. If you have suggestions or thoughts about the show, or if I could help you in any way, please email me directly, daniel@varsitysearch.com. Also would be curious to hear from you what movie you think we should do next in our movie verdicts episodes. We've done, I think, 6 at this point, and we have a long list, but would love to either add to that list or maybe move one up in the order of priority. So if you've got a legal movie that is your favorite you'd love for us to do a deep dive into, please send that to me. Would love to hear from you. All right, that's it for today's Memorial Day edition of Lone Star Lawyers. Thanks again so much to each of you for listening. I'm Daniel Hare with Varsity Search, and we'll talk with you next time.